Chapter 7 of The Seventh Most Important Thing by Shelley Pearsall. "Were you scared?" Barbara asked, sucking on a grape lollipop as she watched Arthur unpack his paper bag of clothes later. The small paper bag was all he'd been allowed to bring when the cops had arrested him for throwing the brick after somebody had seen him running back home. You could take one toothbrush, one comb, one set of street clothes to wear when you left juvie. That was it. In juvie, everybody wore the same olive green jumpsuits. If you were lucky, the previous owner hadn't died in them. Arthur shrugged. "No, I wasn't scared, not really." "Did everybody in the jail have guns?" "I wasn't in jail." "Mom said you were." "Well, I wasn't." Carefully, Arthur put his clothes in the two top drawers of the dresser he shared with his sister. It was odd how grateful he was for everything all of a sudden. The beat-up old dresser with Barbara's Winnie the Pooh stickers on it, the clothes he hadn't seen in 3 months, his sister, the disgusting smell of her grape lollipop. "Was it a school for bad kids?" "Kind of." "Did you make any friends there?" Barbara stopped partway through licking her lollipop, as if this scary possibility had just occurred to her. Arthur had to stifle a sarcastic laugh. "No." There were no friends in juvie, he thought, just varying degrees of people you didn't want to have as enemies. Arthur's bunkmate had been a huge kid called Slash. On Arthur's first day there, Slash had held a rusty razor to his neck and told him that if he farted, belched, barfed, or breathed too loudly in bed, Arthur was on the top bunk, he was dead. Fortunately, Slash had turned out to be the loudest snorer in the room, so Arthur still had a head attached to his shoulders, even if he hadn't gotten much sleep. "You know, I can help you make better friends if you want," Barbara said. "I have lots of them at school." She began going through a long list of names on her fingers. "Okay, thanks." Arthur forced himself to smile at his sister. Despite everything that had happened, somehow she was the only one in the family who seemed to have stayed fairly okay, normal. And right now, he didn't mind sharing a room with a normal kid, even if she was a curly-haired 7-year-old who played with Barbies. At least her name wasn't Slash. That night, after Arthur crawled into his bed, he was surprised when his little sister whispered from the darkness on her side of the room. "You awake, Arthur?" She'd gone to bed hours before him. "It's late. Aren't you supposed to be asleep?" he replied, trying to sound big brotherly. It was past 11. "Yes, but I can't." "Well, try." Arthur turned to face the wall and tugged the covers over his shoulders, as if the conversation was finished. "Are you going to die, Arthur?" Arthur's head snapped back toward his sister's side of the room. "What?" "Some of my friends said Daddy died because he was bad and drank too much and went too fast and crashed his motorcycle, and now you've been bad and you had to go to jail, so are you going to die too?" "Don't be stupid, Barbara," Arthur blurted out. "I wasn't in jail. I'm not going to die. Just be quiet and go to sleep, will you?" Arthur knew he should have been more understanding. His sister was only a little kid trying to get some answers. There was a long silence. Now Arthur couldn't sleep. His bed felt too soft. The room seemed too weirdly quiet after juvie. Barbara had started him thinking about death and his dad. Then Barbara spoke again, almost a whisper. "Do you think Daddy's in heaven?" Arthur gave an aggravated sigh. "Of course he is. Where else do you think he'd be? God, you're driving me nuts with your questions tonight, Barbara. I'm tired and I want to go to sleep, so just shut up and stop talking, okay?" He smacked his pillow and turned toward the wall again. Thankfully, Barbara seemed to get the message this time. But the truth was, Arthur wasn't sure about heaven or anything else. He had a lot of doubts. The doubts often kept him awake. Sometimes they gave him nightmares. He could see the cops at their door, with little drops of rain glistening like glass on their shoulders, saying the word instantly again and again. His father had died instantly. He remembered overhearing one of his aunts talking at the funeral home, saying how it was too bad her brother, Arthur's dad, hadn't been more of a religious person in his life because heaven was such a beautiful place for believers to spend eternity. She never did say where she thought everybody else went. After about 15 minutes of lying there in the darkness, thinking about heaven and his dad and the word instantly, and how he probably shouldn't have been so mean to Barbara the first night he was home, he threw off the covers and got out of bed. He had just reached the door when Barbara whispered, "Where are you going?" "To get a book downstairs." "Why?" "To look up something. Go to sleep," he said firmly, shutting the door behind him. His mother's bedroom door was already closed. He padded softly down the steps to the small bookshelf in the living room, the one that was stuffed with mail and bills. Somewhere on the shelves was a dictionary, he remembered. His mother's high school name, Linda Wesley, was on the inside. That was how old it was. He turned to the word he was looking for. Redemption. Redemption. Noun. 1. The act of being rescued or set free. 2. The act of being saved from consequences. 3. The payment of an obligation. 4. Salvation from sin. If he was supposed to understand what redemption meant after reading the definitions, he didn't. How could the judge think working for the junk man would rescue him and set him free? What did the payment of an obligation mean? And what consequences, other than juvie, was he being saved from? None of it made any sense. Irritated, he pushed the dictionary onto the shelf and went back to bed. The next morning, he walked outside to get the newspaper for his mother. He found something else he didn't understand. At first he thought there was a deflated balloon on the porch steps. Then he realized, no, it was a hat. A black leather motorcycle cap missing the orange Harley-Davidson wings on its brim. Arthur's heart pounded as he picked it up. It was his father's old hat. He was almost certain. Underneath the cap was a note scrawled on a scrap of cardboard. "Sorry, I took it for the wings. St. James." Arthur looked up and down his street, which was empty. He had no idea what to think.